So the first thing that I'm going to want to do here is show you a little bit about how to use arrays in order to control the motion of an object. And what I'm going to do is, you can make it more predictable, but we'll start with adding some functionality that's controlled with an array. So I'll make a new scenario. And I'll just, actually there already is a mover class in Greenfoot, so I'll call it an array mover. And it's possible to do this in several ways, but I'll show you here what we can practice on. Now the background, I don't really need anything fancy, so I'll just use one of the built-ins. Oops. So let's just call this array world. You can call it what you like. But now what I'm going to do is have my actor follow a pattern. And I'm going to go and grab it here. I do have one loaded up to show you. So what I'm going to do is I'll grab a bullet that's facing, you know what, for my purposes, I don't need to spend a lot of time here. You can come up with something more creative, but this will do. So I'll save this one. And remember, you want to try and keep your... Oops, that was supposed to be a GIF. Let me just see if I lost the... I don't know if you do this when you look for your own files, but that's why. One of the types that you can change this to is file type and GIF, or PNG, or whatever file type you want to work with. But now the reason I like using the GIFs is that sometimes I get the transparent background. I don't have to do any editing. And there's not a lot of choice here, but again, I won't put too much emphasis on my artwork. That'll do for me. You can, of course, make the improvements we've talked about previously for doing things like transparency and... Oh. It moves. Yeah, that'll be a good one for the next part here. So let me just... we're definitely going to talk about how to do this with an array, so I'll save that one for the next lesson. But for now, I just want to do something a little bit more basic. Come on, where is it going? Okay, so I'll just save that one. And I'll just grab the basic one that I'd been talking about before. So I'll save this picture. And my folder, this was the array mover. I'll put it in the images. Keep everything together. And I might as well use that name, Blue Bullet, works for me. Okay, whoops, I guess I have to change that name here. I called it a buller, so I'll just do that one more time. So we'll start with the most basic way, and then we'll add some additional features. But what I'll do is I'll peek into the code here, and I'm going to use some arrays to control the way this object behaves. So the first thing I want to do is put a private int, and I'm going to call this my turns. And of course, I don't want just one turn. I'd like many turns, so I'm going to make this an array. So I've got my integer that's going to control when this bullet turns. And I'm also going to make an integer array that controls how much it moves. And we'll customize its behavior a little bit more as we go. But in this constructor, for now, it's going to look like this. We can talk about making some improvements later. but turns, I'm going to initialize it to be a new integer array, and I'm going to just give it 4 slots for now. And I'll do the same with moves. And now I'll fill it with some data. So turns at 0, I'll make this equal to, say, 10. Turns at 1, also 10. 2. So this is the pattern I'm going to give it for now. And again, we'll talk about how this works and how we can improve it, but let's just try something simple to get warmed up. The moves I'm going to do similarly. I'm going to go like this though. I'll say move 1, move 2, let's go 2 and then 1. So this defines the basic way this bullet's going to move. So when it acts, that's what I want to keep track of. So I need to keep track of where the bullet is in its movement right now. And to do that, think about it like a film strip. The strip of film, geez, I should say, do people even know what a film strip is here? Okay, I'm just teasing you, digital generation, right? But you have a film strip, that's like the indices of your array. And each index in this film is telling me how much to move and turn. So I need to keep track of where I'm at inside this array. So that's what I'm going to do here is make a private int. I'll just call it the index. So when this bullet is created, the index is going to be at 0. So here's how I'm going to make it act. I'm just going to ask it to turn by however much is in that turns array. And then I'm going to ask it to move however much is in that moves array. And of course, I now need to advance to the next frame. So, possible problems here. First of all, what we should notice is the fact that it's going to go out of bounds pretty quick. It's going to explode after 4 times because it's going to go out of bounds. But we can fix that. And one way to do that is to check here and say if index is greater than or equal to 4, index equals 0. That's one way of resetting it. Here's what I don't like about this. First of all, those of you that know how to code, who've done this with me before, are probably going to notice that I have a magic number there, this 4. Don't like that because if I change this bullet, everything's now going to have to be updated. Real simple way to get this out of there is say if you go to the end of the array. So use the length property. Even better though than this, which this will work now, it'll set it back to 0, is to do some manipulatives with math. And that is just to use the modulus operator. So remainder will also work for us, and that's one quick way to keep this array moving properly. So if I'm going to say index mod, and the modulus that I'm going to use here is the length of the array. So turns.length. Because, for example, if the array length was 5, it would give me indices from 0 to 4, remainders from 0 to 4. So it still corresponds, but I don't have to check, because as soon as it goes out of bounds, it's going to chop it off with this modulus operator. So that's one handy way that you can manipulate the index in the array by using a remainder. This keeps it within bounds all the time because the remainder is within those bounds. Alright, so what I'm going to do is put it in the world so you can see what this bullet actually does. So now when I run it, not too exciting, is it? Let's change the behavior to get a little bit more pronounced. behavior coming out of it. So let's just say instead I'm going to turn 45 degrees. And in each case, I'll move 1. So it's hard to see with this bullet, but you can actually see it wiggling around out there. So if I say act, you can see the shadow on that ball is changing each time. Okay. So what's happening every time act is called is it's going to go and ask how much more to turn this object. And that's what it's going to insert to the direction here. And then how much it's going to be moved forward depends on what I've given it in here. Now I agree, that does not look very interesting at all. And it is horribly boring, but that's where you come in. This pattern here can do all kinds of fun things with an object. You can make it wiggle, wobble, do all kinds of patterns and things, and that's going to be your job to start. So what I would like you to do just to begin with is play around with this starting bullet here and see what you can do to make it have some kind of interesting pattern. Play around with the turns, play around with how much it moves, see what you can come up with. Ultimately though, what I would like from you is to be able to tell me how big of a pattern this bullet has and some mechanism for setting it. So that could be filling it with random numbers, allowing the person to do it, but customizing the movement so that any kind of object that follows this pattern could use this code. Okay? So, horribly boring, yes, but the beginning, something that you can play with and something which I would like to see your creations from. So using arrays to manipulate the motion, this is your first assignment with Greenfoot.